This is exciting.
Laura, it's very exciting. Okay, let's first say what the name of our podcast is, which is
Made in Spain. So welcome everyone to our first ever episode of Made in Spain.
I think we should probably set the stage a little bit as to how it came about. And we are really good friends. We've known each other for a number of years now, and we're always looking at some type of project. We have many ideas, many storyboards, mood boards, and this one just came about. I thought of something one morning. I messaged you. I said, we should do a podcast. We should call it this. And you wrote back immediately, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just been something that we've kept going back to. I think it's been one of those ideas that, you know, from a kind of like the mood boards that you said, or, you know, the little projects that we were potentially looking at. This is the one that's kind of kept coming up as something that I think we both feel both passionate about, that we could enjoy, and that other people would also enjoy. And I think the kind of feedback also that we've had from the people around us and who know us, that, hey, you know, you should really do something like this. You should really do a podcast, you know, because I think that, you know, people could, you know, naturally like be interested in some of the topics that, you know, we like to talk about and explore.
Yeah. And I think by nature, the two of us are very curious people and get excited by the smallest of things where we live and what we experience, you know, on a daily basis. And I thought, well, the expat life, I mean, you're not an expat, but I am. And sometimes it's, you know, from the outside, people think it's just glamorous. Like you're just lounging around all day in the sun, where that's not necessarily true. So I don't want people to think the podcast is just, you know, flying the flag for the country that we happen to live in. It's really a dive into the things that we appreciate here, things that might drive us crazy.
Yes, truly made in Spain.
Yeah,
everything from, you know, the wonderful things that this country has to offer, to some of the frustrating, you know, bits and pieces about living here. Just like any country, there's a, you know, we both had the chance to travel a lot. There's great things, and, you know, there's things that you'd like to do differently.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be enjoyable. And for those people who want to learn, I think as much as possible, unbiased perspective on Spain from two very different angles, but also with a shared perspective in the middle of it, I think they may enjoy this. I think, Nalini, we should introduce ourselves and,
absolutely.
You know, get people an opportunity to get to know us a little bit better. So why don't you kick us off and tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you got here?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a sort of, I think, a funny story, because in our family, we are not planners. We don't plan anything, nor do we appear to do any research on anything. So we just decided, I have three boys. My middle son at the time, he was playing competitive tennis in Toronto. I'm from Canada. I was formerly on television and took a step back to take care of my family. My husband travels quite extensively, as does yours.
Yeah.
And I just said to him one day, why not? Why don't we just go live somewhere else, try something different, especially for my middle son, because he was playing indoor tennis. And I said, why don't we, you know, take him to a tennis academy? So we went to Mallorca. He went to the...
So how did that come about, though? Like, was it just like, okay, there's a tennis academy here and we're going to Spain? Or how
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That was, I'm being honest, I don't even know how I came to that. I think I started looking at tennis academies, and the Nadal Academy was opening that particular year. So
and he was really huge at the time as well.
Yes.
He was at the peak of his career.
I mean, honestly, I didn't even really know where Mallorca was. I didn't. I mean, I had an idea. To me, it was just a very glamorous place. And I thought, oh, well, why don't we go? And at the time we were renovating our house. So my husband said, okay, we'll go stay there for 3 months with the kids and, you know, see what it's like. And he actually went to a different academy at that time. We came back, and then the following year we decided, okay, we're going to enroll him in this academy. And I would live there so that he wouldn't be alone on the island. So we just moved.
And your husband traveled back and forth from
yeah.
Mallorca while you were exploring and understanding how to live in a whole new country.
Had
you ever lived outside of Canada before moving to Spain?
No.
Okay, so
no, I had never lived outside of Canada. I mean, my Spanish is horrific, but
we're gonna test that.
Yeah,
in these
that's
episodes,
that's another but at my expense, but I'm okay with that. And honestly, we did a tour of the school. We set Kai up to go to the academy. My husband rented the apartment. He just showed me what it looked like. And I was like, oh, that looks good. I had no clue where anything was at all. And I did I think I told you this. I did the orientation at Ayrton's school in English. Mm-hmm. And the first day, so I did that in March. We filled the paperwork. We arrived there August. And the teacher does the presentation, to meet the kids and the parents completely in Spanish. And I sat there and I asked the parent. Yeah, I said, is this not an English school? Yeah. Do they not speak English here? And she said, no, it's an international Spanish school. Mm-hmm. I said, oh, okay. So I came home and I said, listen, he's 4, he's going to have to learn. That's just how it is. And he did learn. He learned to speak the language in 4 months.
Which, by the way, knowing Nalini's son, Ayrton, very well, he probably speaks better Spanish than most people that I know that have been here for 20 years plus. Yeah, and that is the power, actually, I think, of really immersing your children in a language as well.
And I was very insistent when we came here. After he learned it, I said, it doesn't matter if he changes schools. We live in this country. Even if I struggle with it, you have to speak it. So, and I always put him in a Spanish school. I've never put him in a British-run school. That was just my choice. And I've tried to immerse myself in different things here to appreciate the culture. I'm being honest, I do struggle with the language. It's not as if I haven't tried.
It's tough for English speakers, and as you know, I'm also married to an expat from Canada.
Canadian. Maybe it's a Canadian thing.
I don't know. Maybe it's an English speaker. I don't know. And my father's English, and he's been here for 40 years plus, and he still struggles with the language. But yeah, it's not easy.
Anyway, so we stayed there for 2 years. We moved back to Toronto for 6 months, and then we just, again, on a whim, said, well, let's just go again. Let's give it another go. And I found another tennis academy close to where we are, which is in the Costa Blanca region. I didn't want to live on an island anymore because in the winter, I felt very trapped. Even though Mallorca is so magical and beautiful, it's probably one of my favorite places. I couldn't live there again. And my friends started to leave. It was also very transient as an expat. Yeah. And the Mallorquin, they've been there for hundreds of years, thousands of years. You're not getting into that circle. You have to stay basically in the expat circle. Yeah. And people come and go. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to move to, quote unquote, a normal area. We rented the place online again. No clue as to where it was. We just turned up with the dog and the suitcases and just started life here. And that's me. We've been here since.
Awesome. Well, I think I have to be grateful for the fact that there is a tennis academy in this area because that's why I got to meet you. So maybe I'll share a little bit about myself and kind of give some background. So I think what's really cool is that there's a lot of things that really unite us in a way and that, we have in common. But at the same time, we also have a lot of things that are very different in terms of, growing up, etc. And for me, I think, being half Spanish, half English, being raised here in the Costa Blanca, I have had a chance to travel quite a bit. Some people do ask me where is your accent from? And I get anything from, are you American or, Swedish? And I think my accent in English is very mixed because it does get heavily influenced by whoever I am spending a lot of time with.
Right.
Because it is my second language. So I am going to say that, if there's any time while we're doing this podcast, that I say something that sounds weird or that doesn't sound quite right, English is still I am bilingual, but English is still very much my second language. So it's something to keep in mind. So raised here in the Costa Blanca, and I would say that one of the things that, is going to give me a perspective to be able to bring to the conversations that we have about Made in Spain is that I have had the chance to see a lot of different countries, but always thoroughly enjoy coming back home. This area really does feel like home, more than just because I believe I was born here, but also because of the energy, the people, the places. I do think we're lucky that it is a very safe area, and that we get to do a lot of things on a day-to-day basis that I think sometimes you can take for granted if you don't see other places. Right?
I mean, we were talking about this. You go away and you think you're going to see this beautiful beach. You go on a vacation and then you realize we have a beautiful beach 10 minutes from where we live, and sometimes we feel hard pressed to go.
Absolutely.
Say, okay, we'll just stay in, but we'll get on a plane and fly to see a beach when we have one that is a blue flag, beautiful, clean beach.
Yeah, absolutely. It is true that we do get spoiled, like you said, with the beaches, and sometimes you're like, oh, okay, so like where should we go here? Should we go there? I mentioned to you that I was in the Caribbean last year, and I was a little bit disappointed in the Dominican Republic because the water wasn't as clean as I was expecting it to be, because we are very spoiled because of the beaches here. And just for perspective in terms of what I do in my day-to-day, I want to share with the audience that I'm a leadership advisor. I get to work with people from all over the world, and I do feel very privileged that I still get to be able to choose to live here in Spain, even though there's been times where it would have maybe made more sense to go and live elsewhere. I've always felt this is just a great central place when you're traveling a lot. Yeah. You're in Europe and the US and Asia, etc. It's not that far away. So I think, I'm very grateful that, I've been able to stay here by choice.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. And I have my Canadian passport. I can go home at any time. We still have a little place there. But the more time that I spend here, the more it starts to feel like home.
Yeah.
This lady told me something when I lived in Mallorca. I always kept my watch set to Toronto time.
Oh, no way.
And she always said, you will change the time when you have arrived.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, stop with that. I was like, don't tell me that kind of stuff. I just want to see what time it is. So when I call my family, but it was true. It was as if I was still holding on to that. And you kind of just have to let go. You let it go, and then you try to immerse yourself here.
Absolutely.
Which I think I've done.
Awesome.
The purpose of this podcast really is to highlight living here in Spain and to cover what we decided is really what we're passionate about: food, fashion, and fun places.
Absolutely.
That either we have visited or are going to visit.
Yes. And a little bit of a snippet of some of the places, the food and the fashion that you'll be listening about and hearing about and learning about. We are going to be going to Madrid very soon. Mm-hmm. We're going to be exploring the brand Loewe or Loewe. There's a lot of controversy there about how to even say that. We'll be exploring a little more about the Costa Blanca. Won't reveal exactly where in the Costa Blanca just yet. But you'll get to learn about that very soon. And we'll also be talking about olives and olive oil, which will be exciting. And what's going to be another one of our themes there as well?
Well, I think anything that we're really passionate about, mm-hmm. which is food. The food here is fantastic. Absolutely. I mean, the quality of food is amazing, and you can go into the most basic of places and find the most delicious food. And I get excited about those things. So I thought, wow, I really want to share it with other people. And even just my friends or family, when I have something that's delicious or simple, or I'm in a little rustic area, I want to FaceTime and show people and say, this is fantastic. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can spend limitless here in this country on anything that you want. However, you don't have to. You can go to a little mom and pop shop and have the most delicious meal.
Sometimes actually I think that those are the best.
Me too.
Like you end up having the best experiences, the best meals when you least expect it. Yeah, it's nice to go to like, the fancy restaurants sometimes, but I do think it goes back to something that's a key theme across the different topics that we're going to touch, and it's quality. So it's quality of the produce, quality of the products,
exactly,
quality of the production, the artisan, the artisanship. I think there's a theme there that we both really appreciate high quality, and high quality doesn't always have to mean high expense, but high quality in terms of, what you can experience from, what you're eating, what you're seeing, what you're consuming.
Yeah, and also when you're talking about quality in fashion, this has been a learning experience for me as well. Just the amount of things that are produced here in Spain, in particular regions, by artisans that they're using techniques that are, 200 years old in high-end fashion. So it's a discovery. It's amazing to learn that it's just here in a town that's a 5-hour drive away from us. And it's to showcase that as well, just the workmanship and the beauty and the art in that. It's not just that designer bag that you may see in a store walking down the Gran Via in Madrid.
There's a lot of history behind that.
There's, hundreds of years of history behind that. And I've been able to educate myself from that perspective, that I maybe don't agree with the price tag all the time.
Of course.
But I can understand why they're charging that when you look at what goes on behind it.
So as we are continuing to develop what the podcast is going to be and, what we're going to be highlighting on the episodes, we obviously have a lot of different plans, especially for our first season, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you have some suggestions or there's something you're particularly interested in learning about Spain, and you think it goes well with some of the themes that we've shared, please drop us a comment on any of the platforms that you are engaging with us in, and we will be bringing it up in the different episodes and looking into it to make sure that we meet your needs.
And I think this brings us to our next sort of area, which is slice of life. We're going to cover what's happened in just an organic way in our lives over the last week or so, or what we've been up to, or experiences that we've had, and share a little bite of food, a nice little drink. Every week we will feature something that is Spanish, either a wine, a cava, maybe coffee. Doesn't have to be anything alcoholic. And then,
although that's probably going to be a recurring theme, given that we also want to enjoy doing this with you.
And then we'll feature a food. So I think that leads us to our slice of life.
Awesome.
First slice of life. Literally, it's a slice of toast.
Bread.
Tostada.
Awesome. So we want to give you a little bit of a background about what we're going to be enjoying today, what we're going to be eating, what we're going to be drinking. So Nalini, do you want to take us a little bit through what we've got on the table here?
Okay. Well, this is one of my favorites. It's a tostada con tomate. Mm-hmm. Did I say that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Tostada con tomate. Approve.
And this is a café bonbon. And I actually had to look up the spelling of it this morning because I thought it was B-O-N. It's B-O-M-B-O-N.
Bonbon?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm learning that for the first time.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was just bonbon.
Me too. That's how I was saying it. And I wanted to find out it's 2 ingredients, but still, is there an origin to it? Apparently, it's from Valencia.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it is not yet a bonbon.
No, right now
it's just coffee.
Espresso, yeah.
Do you want me to make it
a
bonbon?
Yes.
Okay.
Which we hardly ever drink. But it's
a treat. I actually think we've never drank this together.
No.
But so bonbon is the black espresso coffee, and then you basically put the condensed milk. Okay, I think we're gonna have to open this a little bit more to just get a little bit more of the condensed milk. And now I bet you it's gonna just like pour in a bunch. Okay, that's probably too much. I think that's enough. What do you think, Nalini?
No, pour it.
Okay.
I like it. I
you
love
know how
condensed.
sweet this stuff is?
Yes, Okay, for those who don't know, my origins. I'm from the Caribbean, and condensed milk is often a food group there. So
No way.
I grew up with condensed milk. Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't had condensed milk.
Look who's talking.
Okay, yeah. Well, you made me jealous. I haven't had condensed milk in a very long time. Gosh, that is a lot of condensed milk. But okay, so I think we've got our bonbons.
Yeah.
And
we
this.
We have to stir it.
Okay, so I'm gonna move the ham 1 second near my toast. Here we go. Perfect. And put this condensed milk here. Great. So here's a spoon.
Okay, let's stir.
Okay, but wait, let's just
Cheers.
appreciate how beautiful these bonbons are with
are.
the dark coffee and the white condensed milk underneath. It's so yummy.
So yeah, cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
As usual, always quick to have a drink. Me can't ever wait.
So I will take our milk off the table here.
Okay, and then you gotta stir yours.
Yes, please.
Also, just slice of life is we will feature a food and a drink, but also just talk about what we've been up to over the last little bit. It may be glamorous at times, and it may be completely ridiculous other times, because that's how life is. But I just returned from Toronto. I was there for 5 weeks. That's where I'm from.
So 2 T's though. You went Toronto and
Trinidad.
So,
which the 2 T's typically are, if you say T&T, would be Trinidad and Tobago, but this time it was Toronto and Trinidad. I have family there. We went down for a couple of days. It was, I would have to say, one of the highlights of my year. Being with my sister and her family.
That's
and
fantastic.
I haven't seen her in over a decade. And just being in Toronto as well, it was cold, kind of gray. I realized after about a week I hadn't seen the sun, which I just accept being there at times. But really, I thought, wow.
Did it remind you of why you like to go back, but maybe don't want to live there right now?
Absolutely. I mean, I love my hometown, and I was actually proud to be in the city at the time that I was. Taylor Swift she did 6 concerts in Toronto.
Wow.
And I thought, and we were staying in the center of the city, in the downtown area. I thought for sure Toronto would be on the world map for crime or some kind of debacle because of the amount of people that came in. Nothing happened over a 2-week period. And I thought, wow, we've done it right this time. So I was actually...
With 6 Taylor Swift concerts. I mean,
6 Taylor Swift concerts, over 1 million people. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in the city. So
Crazy.
It was a good experience. I did not go to the concert, but it was a great experience being in my home city and feeling, proud that we did a good job.
So Toronto, Trinidad,
and
time with family.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as we said in the Slice of Life, we'll talk a little bit about what we're having also. So we're having the coffee.
Yep.
And then for the tostadas,
yes.
Can you tell us, Nalini, how you went about the tomato?
Oh, well, people might not know this, but this is actually a cooking hack. If you were to just take a tomato and put it on a grater, a box grater or a hand grater, you get the pulp and you kind of get rid of the seeds and all the bits that you don't necessarily want. So even just for cooking, it's a really easy way to use a tomato.
It is a little bit of an argument here in Spain. Like, how do you go about getting your tomato on your toast? So some people will cut it and they'll just rub it directly on the toast. But as Nalini said, you waste a ton of the tomato doing that. Also, I think what's really nice about doing it like this, where you grate it, is that it kind of emulsifies a little bit and it really kind of gives a really beautiful flavor. So one thing that for me, and I'm not sure about Nalini, she'll have to tell me, but I cannot have the tostada without the olive oil.
No, of course not.
So we have to put some in there. Again, this will depend on preference. Some people will put the olive oil in the tomato, like in the actual bowl of the tomato. You tell me when to stop.
That's good, yeah.
Okay, there you go. And I'm having mine with a little bit of serrano ham because can't resist some serrano ham.
And this would be a very typical Spanish breakfast, no?
Yes. So absolutely would be a very typical Spanish breakfast. a lot of times, people don't really think of, like, let's say, for example, eggs for breakfast here, or, the typical thing you see elsewhere is the toast and what is on the toast. So some people will have the tostada con tomate, or they'll have the tostada con jamón,
or just simply olive oil.
Or olive oil. Actually, the simple toast with olive oil, if you walk around and you see the bars and the cafes, etc., that's probably what you're going to see the most. Is people having their café con leche. So maybe not the bonbon like we're having today, but just the café con leche and the tostada con aceite. That is a very, very kind of simple and typical breakfast. And I think that is quite consistent across the country, not just here.
No, and it is very simple, but it is delicious because the tomatoes here are fantastic. They're fresh. They're grown here. They're seasonal. You get so many different varieties, and I love tomatoes, and I love this kind of breakfast.
And actually, not to get into any international arguments with the French baguettes, but I do think the rustic kind of bread here that we use for the toast is pretty nice as well. Yeah. And in most places, you can get a really nice fresh loaf of bread. So I think and also if you think about it, it's a very non-expensive breakfast. I mean, it's just a piece of bread, some coffee, a little bit of milk, and some tomato. But it's something that, it's very filling and, it can be enjoyed. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about
what's going on. Can I try it?
Yeah, you can eat. You can eat while I can talk a little bit about what's going on. I might actually just take a quick bite before I tell you a little bit about what's been going on with me. But I'm trying to do this so I don't get this all over myself. So I'm actually going to... No, can I use the bowl?
This is a treat for me. I love it.
Okay, so I am actually going to use the plate because if not, it's going to be a little hard. So I'm going to take just a quick bite. It's so good.
It's so good. For anybody who kind of thinks this is not...
It's so good.
It's so good. It's a delicious breakfast. It's inexpensive, and it's very emblematic of Spanish cuisine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you a little bit about what's been going on in my life. I've had a pretty, I would say, exciting / tumultuous couple of weeks. I got the chance to go to Japan, which was really on my bucket list, somewhere that I'd never been to for work or anything like that. And I've always really wanted to go to Japan. And it's because I grew up watching a lot of Japanese cartoons.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, I watched, Dragon Ball and all this kind of stuff. And I was really into it. And for some reason, because I was thinking about this the other day, it was a very typical thing in Spain. A lot of the cartoons that they would play on the public networks were Japanese cartoons. So we kind of grew up watching a lot of that.
Right.
So ever since I was little, in the cartoons, they're like eating the sushi and, all that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to go. So we finally got to go. And I just felt it was amazing cultural experience. I loved it. I think that the Japanese culture probably could not contrast more with the Spanish culture. It is so very different, but at the same time, very enjoyable. We hear people tend to be a little bit kind of loud. You and I have traveled together before on the train. And one of the things that I mentioned to you when we travel on the train is, you sit in a train here that is not, quote unquote, the silent cart. And people will be on their phones, they're talking, they're watching videos. Where in Japan, you go on the train and you can literally hear a penny drop because everybody's quiet, everybody's silent. They're very respectful of each other's space. Right. So I just think culturally it was a fantastic experience. And obviously I love food, and the food there was just mind-blowing. And also then the whole experience of coming back from Japan, stopping in Ethiopia, because as it happened, we got our flights with air miles, and that was just the most convenient way to do it. Not convenient, but like the best way with the miles, let's say. And, stopping in Ethiopia, which is a beautiful country and is very different, but coming from Japan, going to Ethiopia was such a contrast.
Culture shock.
Huge culture shock. And also like food contrast as well. You're going from, a lot of very kind of fresh vegetables, etc., to a lot of kind of stews and curries. And, it's a very, very different. But I have to say, I would go back to Ethiopia. I would go back to Addis. to the capital, Addis Ababa. And yeah, I think it was absolutely fascinating. So
I have a question. You flew in Japan. Do the passengers clap when the pilot lands the plane, or is that just a Spanish thing? Because
is that a Spanish thing? It's so awkward.
Well, my son claps now, so and there's nobody else on the plane clapping, and he is, and I'm like, stop clapping. He's like, oh, we don't do that. I'm like, no, that's just when we fly with Spanish people, I think, because.
So I have experienced it a number of times where I've gone on a plane, mostly Spanish people, and we've landed. There were times that I know why people were clapping, because the flight was very scary and there was a lot of turbulence, and they were like, oh, great, we made it. But it is weird how, it's like, why? And you're suddenly, last time I think I was going to Paris and we landed in Paris, it was a normal flight. There was no turbulence and everybody started clapping. And I was just looking around like, why are people clapping?
It happened when we went to Mallorca in the summer, but I think that's the party plane.
Oh, yeah.
Like people are just going for a party. And anyway, I was a question.
Yeah, awesome.
So this was delicious. We're going to continue that after. Did you talk about the tomato?
I don't think I did. So if anybody is actually seeing these images on YouTube or on the socials, you will see that there is a massive tomato on the table. I would say this is not a normal size tomato for us. And these tomatoes are called cordebo, which means like a bull's heart. And they're kind of pinkish inside. Yeah. So even the tostada, when you actually see the tomato on it, it doesn't look as red as normal because the pulp inside is actually more pink. And they're in season right now. They're absolutely wonderful. I do think some people would think that we're kind of destroying them by grating them, because these would usually be sliced and with some olive oil. But yeah, so
delicious. And we're going to end our podcast each week with a phrase of the day. So this is putting me on the spot. I have to think of what she's saying. It translated into English.
Yes. And I will help you with the translation, but I just want to make sure that the audience know and our listeners know that we have not discussed this before.
No.
You are hearing this for the first time. Okay. So the sentence of the day today, I'm going to say it in Spanish slowly, and then we can kind of try and translate it together, is en casa del herrero, cuchara de palo.
Okay.
En casa del herrero. So let's start there.
Okay, so in the house.
En casa, in the house, yes. Del herrero.
I don't know what that is.
In the blacksmith. Is blacksmith like the person that works with metal?
Yes. And then
in the blacksmith's house.
Stick, something with a stick.
You will find a wooden spoon.
A wooden spoon.
What do you think that means?
In
the blacksmith's house, you will find a wooden spoon.
He's a hypocrite.
And it kind okay, so here's what I think of that sentence. I think it talks a little bit about the fact that we're all a bit hypocritical in the sense that en casa del herrero, cuchara de palo. Okay. I actually think that's a really great way to define it, the hypocritical thing, meaning that we'll preach to others. We'll do let's say, for example, someone who, let's say they're a 5-star Michelin chef, but when they get home, they eat Burger King.
Okay.
Or someone that's like, let's say, a psychologist and is like super developed in terms of how they're telling their clients to treat people, but when they get home, they don't control their emotions or something like that. Okay. So you're basically not applying to yourself what you are
to the outside world.
Yes. Okay. That's what it means.
I got the translation.
Yay! Awesome. But it's kind of I just have always liked that sentence because I see it. I see people when you're like, yeah, you can see it. And people will use that sentence a lot.
And I think the Spanish have some really funny sayings. Yeah. And that when it's translated into English, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. Like every culture.
So you got that one.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. At least close to it. All right. So I guess we can say our goodbyes. And just coming up next week.
Coming up next week, we have an episode on the Loewe brand and an experience that we're going to be having in Madrid.
Yeah. So, cheers, Laura.
Cheers.
Our first podcast done.